Dr. Menon, do you think that there's a lot of gap between what we are trying to say, what we are preaching here, and what we are practicing, and that gap has to be bridged?
That's your, you said it right there. But I really want to emphasize this issue of the states and the communities and the districts, the issues that Vandana was raising, because I think firstly that's where things are happening. That's where things clearly have to happen. You know, what we say here, what somebody says in Delhi, has to happen in the house of a poor woman sitting in the middle of Singrauli district in MP, right? So keep that in your mind, and that's where decentralization comes in, that's where state level governance comes in, and that's where the story of nutrition and hunger in India is. If you look at, you know, the data situation firstly, which would allow us really to unpack this and understand it a little bit better, is fairly abysmal. We have one number here on the underweight. We need to see what the rest looks like. We need to look at where there's been change, where there hasn't been change, and then try and understand where that has come from. But once we do, then the action also happens at that level, right? So at some level, one is going to have to work closely with states to say, look, what are the gaps in one state versus the other? The issue of open defecation, the issue of women's education, those issues vary quite a lot across India. You know, in the southern states, we've done pretty well on women's education. You've done fairly well on dimensions of economic growth. Again, something that we can't forget, because it does put resources, like Santosh was saying, in people's pockets. It puts resources in the state government.
But there's nothing like a perfect state that we see in our
There's nothing like a perfect
Nothing
state,
like
and there likely is not a perfect country as well anywhere in the world. You know, Brazil did very well on undernutrition and is losing the battle against obesity. So, you know, there's a long way to go on any of these.
That's right.
But I think we have to focus in on having firstly a learning agenda. You know, what we end up with in several of these contexts is people think they know what is happening in X state or Y state. We don't invest enough in saying, you know, what really happened? Can we learn that? Can we do the research on what needs to be done?
And you know, largely, Dr. Prasad, if I ask you, whenever we have seen a growth in terms of all these indicators, do you think that it's largely the effect of states' administration, the state government, their proactiveness that has resulted in it?
I think that different factors one would find in different situations, and I must say that one can't forget the role of civil society, of community mobilization, and many of those processes have happened. There have been, you know, the good models, for example, which have actually been born out of severe crises. So Melghat, you know, and that whole experience over there, where the government stepped in and created a, you know, completely different structure to help with malnutrition in a particular area, because deaths were going on and on happening in an area. Like I said, Odisha has, you know, shown some way ahead in decentralization, because there's also political vision that you know makes a difference. So if the political leaders of a particular state are quite committed to decentralization, for example, then all policies flow from that. If in Tamil Nadu food has always been on the political agenda in some manner or the other, then the ICDS has worked you know, as a model for decades before. Now we're talking about things happening in other states. So I think that political vision, because some of these things that we're saying, like decentralization, comprehensiveness, rights, equity, these are not necessarily technical issues. So if they inform then our programs and policies as key principles, fundamental principles within which we must house the technicalities and the specific programming which take into account the context, which are context specific, then I think that is what basically makes a difference. And this has worked to lesser or more extent everywhere, but as Purnima is saying, that we haven't really seen the full model at work in any state in any so far. Yeah.
Right. But you know, Dr. Mehrotra, what's also very important, since we touched at the issue of poverty too, people should really have the money, enough money to buy, afford these things. And you know, food is, of course, you really need to have some pennies in your pocket if you want to eat well. And it is not about eating some sort, you know, a couple of eggs maybe in a month or in a week, but it is also about expanding it to a daily routine. And that's where I guess the question of affordability comes. Dr. Mehrotra, Do you think, in fact, there had been a drive of, you know, a few people from the intelligentsia have written to the government that the MGNREGS should not be scrapped. Not just about that scheme, but about the rest of the other themes. And also looking at the fact that more employment opportunities can be generated. Do you think that's also directly would be, you know, helping people and the country improve its, you know, its performance on these indices?
You ask a difficult question. Let me explain why. About 8 years ago, when MNREGA started, I was actually the head of the Rural Development Division in the Planning Commission, and I was a great votary of it and worked hard on it, and we did very well. However, many of us were at that time already convinced that very rapidly taking the program to the whole country wasn't exactly the best idea. There are labor surplus districts in our country and there are labor scarce districts in our country. If we were to focus our attention and our money and our financial resources particularly in the labor surplus districts, rather than fritter it away all over the country, it would be more effective in the Koraput, Bolangir, Kalahandi, etc. kind of districts of this country. I'm just giving these as examples. So all I'm saying is that this is that MNREGA has played a great role. It should continue to exist. It does need some reform, some modification. I don't think this is the program to sort of go into that into much detail. But there is no question about it that there are significant parts of this country, including in the poor UP and in Jharkhand and Bihar and so on, where people are finding work outside of agriculture, outside of the rural areas, and even in non-farm activities in rural areas, because construction work is booming, and that's where agricultural workers are moving out to. As a result of that, wages in agriculture itself have risen. You know, MNREGA led to a one-off increase in wages. However, the continued and sustained increase in wages that have taken place in rural areas post 2005-06 have been driven by the fact that alternative employment was becoming available both in rural as well as in urban areas, particularly in construction. So these factors need to be kept in mind. I am not suggesting that you should be winding up MNREGA. Far from it. In particular parts of the country, it is still very desperately needed. But we also know we have to look at the facts. The facts are that there is less demand for it. The number of person days per household being generated every year, according to the Ministry of Rural Development's own numbers, have been declining, and the Ministry of Rural Development's own numbers on respect of person days of work generated is actually much higher than what the NSS told us, the National Sample Survey. So the point I'm making is that, you know, the economy is evolving and there are alternative employment opportunities becoming available. If that was not happening for the last 8 to 10 years, you wouldn't see the decline in poverty, and that employment increase outside of agriculture must be sustained, and this government's focus does need to return to that. The Make in India slogan must also be must be not just concerned about making in India, but making by the manufacturing must be focused on small and medium enterprises where the jobs are generated.
That's right.
So that's very important, not just construction.
At the same time, you need enough food grains. I mean, you know, that push to agriculture
I'm not denying that.
Also required.
No, but the agricultural growth rate has improved. We should also learn lessons from states which have done well in agriculture, like Andhra Pradesh, like Gujarat. We should be, other states should be learning lessons from that. Why isn't UP sort of learning that lesson? I don't understand that. Because, I mean, I find it utterly shocking that UP's agricultural growth rates are as low as they are, despite the fact that 70% of their agricultural land is irrigated.
And we live in a country where there are a number of farmer suicide that takes place, where the sugar farmers, the other farmers keep agitating because they don't get enough of their produce. and the input prices of the agriculture is an additional burden on the farmers, along with, of course, monsoon. Dr. Prasad, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring in another very little heard nuance on this Narega story, which is not, from the economist's point of view at all. But basically, when we program for children, migration is a key issue. So whether it be for education, for preschool, for feeding programs, for care, migration is a critical bottleneck and a problem for programming for children. And we have seen that Narega has halted migration outside of these very desperate and dire circumstance kind of areas in India. So I think that we have to keep that in mind. I'm not debating between using labor for agricultural purposes or non-agricultural purposes, but all I'm saying is that for children where families are concerned,
they should be a permanent source of income generation.
Work has to be close to home.
And the
work has to be close to home.
And the money should be better than what some states are giving. Yes, Dr. Menon, you wanted to say something.
I wanted to, we've talked a lot about issues at sort of the level of households, levels of communities, but I want to talk about the issue of leadership. Because when you talk about social equity, when you talk about improving nutrition, when you talk about improving hunger, and you have situations where you have so many different things that cause it. Santosh talked about the food, health, care. Now, food gets delivered through 2 ministries, 3 ministries. There's agriculture, there's food and civil supplies, there's all these things. So what you need is somebody that says, look, I just want this to be an issue. I want equity to be an issue, and that's where leadership comes in. If we look at countries, and even if we look at states within India where these changes have happened, where situations have improved, there have been leaders, there have been champions, they have paid attention to issues of equity as a whole. So I think the other thing that we really need to see from this government at the national level, but also from the tough state governments, states like UP, states like Bihar, where it's going to take quite a lot more to move all of their indicators. I think you need some really strong leadership there. You need strong leadership that's paying attention to this as an issue.
That's right. But we are also moving towards the right to food, and that's where, we have seen the National Food Security Mission kicking up, and there we have seen some states really moving ahead with that. But what's there, Dr. Mehrotra, with some states who are not really able to meet the deadline? We have just seen it being postponed months after months. But looking at the fact, do you think now it's really expanding, and this government also has the vision? The previous government also had a vision regarding that. And do you think it's really going to be a reality? No person in this country will die because of hunger.
I can see that you pose the most difficult questions to me. Let me see if I can sort of handle this. You see, you know as well as I do that the National Food Security Act was passed towards the end of the previous regime. It was supposed to be rolled out from around July onwards this year in the whole country. Well, it was slowly rolled out before that, but it was supposed to be, covered by, it was supposed to be covering the whole country by about July this year.
Right.
That timetable has completely gone off the chart. Why is this? Well, I'm not surprised that this is the situation, because states have not done their bit to reform PDS. If they don't reform PDS, if you roll out the National Food Security Act, then you will be simply throwing more good money after bad. That's not a very good idea. So clearly, what is absolutely critical is that the PDS reform that all of us are agreed upon should happen needs to be rolled out in every state. We all know that certain states have rolled out reform, they have done very well, and a very significant proportion of the remaining states have not. So unless we fix that problem, it's a bit unlikely that the NFSA is going to become a reality by the end of financial year 2015, meaning by March 2015. And it's an absolute and dire necessity that those PDS reforms happen as rapidly as is possible.
Okay. Dr. Prasad, I'll have last 1 minute on the show. What are your concluding remarks on the right to food? Do you think that's going to be a reality in near future? And do you think India would be free of this curse called hunger?
I think it must. I mean, there's just no case to say anything but that we must all commit ourselves very fully, and we must push our governments as solidly and as strongly as we can. We must be as strident in our demands for the right to food for all people. You know, it's not, it's elderly, it's children, it's people with disability, it's everybody. I don't see how this growing economic giant can get away by saying that, you know, we're just simply going to allow people to rot without food, to starve, children not to get a decent meal a day. So these are just not realities that one should swallow at all in this country, and I really would really hope that the middle class engages with this much more strongly. You know, the equity issue that we've continuously been raising as a panel all together is something that somehow has been very sanitized. I mean, people have very conveniently forgotten what poor people are, how they're living, how they're eating, how they're shitting. You know, so I think that there needs to be a much greater engagement with the equity issue, with saying that yes, these are our families and our brothers and sisters out there, not some different population who's actually causing us a great difficulty in this country.
That's right. So it's very important to realize our responsibility and also behave like a community when we say it is community's responsibility. Thanks very much for joining us. Quite a pleasure having you all here. That's all we have for you in this edition of Public Forum. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.